Welcome to the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. This is the show where we break through the fear of change and ask the question, scared? So what? Each week we dive into personal change management, coaching, and leadership for the future, giving you real-world tools, insights, and stories to help you lead yourself and others through transformation. Whether you're navigating change in your life, your career, or your organization, this is your space to learn, to grow, and to take bold action. So, are you ready? Let's move from fear to forward. Welcome to the Scared So What podcast show. Today, we're honored to have a special guest with us that has been coaching new and seasoned leaders since 2011. She's also a qualified tutor and assessor and teaches in the business school at the University of Middlesex, London. Her business is 2J Consulting, which is an ILM, Institute of Leadership and Management, approved center. She runs coaching and leadership qualifications accredited by the ILM, and she is accredited by the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, EMCC, at Senior Practitionerlevel, and she coaches in organizations across a range of areas from engineering, IT, and software to local government and NHS. It's time to meet our special guest, Tina Dickens. Hi, Tina. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you, Grant. Yeah, really pleased to be here.
Oh, it's so nice to see you again and to hear you and to talk with you. We've known each other for quite a little while, haven't we?
I have indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell our audience where we did meet?
So we met when I was program director for the Masters in Sales Leadership Transformation with Conversatio.
Right.
And you were one of my students.
That's right.
And I think I was in the room when Scared So What was sort of came to life.
You absolutely were there.
Yeah, that was a great day.
You were instrumental in its start. You absolutely were, and it's just been an incredible journey. So it's so honored to be here with you today, and to watch you over your journey as well too. And we've both done so much together, and we're on just similar paths. And I just think it's wonderful. It was just such a no-brainer to have you on today's show with us.
Yeah.
But for our audience, you're welcome. For our audience, could you tell us a little bit about you and your exciting career?
Yeah, well, my career has certainly been varied. I was thinking back over this as I was preparing for today, and I thought, where did it start? Well, I did a combined honours degree at Oxford Brookes University many years ago in computing and history, an unusual combination, but I think it sort of reflects me and it reflects how my journey has developed as well. It gave me technical knowledge to train and sell online systems, which was my early career. I did that in the days before most people had heard of the internet, so that was very exciting. And doing history gave me the communication and language skills to interact with people at all levels of organisations. And for me, that's the constant thread through my career, is the interest in people. I started doing training and customer services for a couple of years. I then moved into sales. Yeah. And interestingly, I might be a glutton for punishment, but I wanted my impact on the organisation to be measurable, for people to go, yeah, this month, this is what you've contributed to our organisation. And it could be stressful, but it could also be very rewarding. And I think for me, going from sales to running my own business was quite a natural progression because I was used to that sort of entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose. Yeah. I spent 8 years at the Financial Times. We had a division that specialised in online information products, and I was a key account manager there. Absolutely loved that. And as I said, it's the people that interested me. What was it that made people in organisations make the buying decisions that they did? What was driving their motivations, their choices when they were making buying decisions? And it was always so much more than just how much it cost. It was what was the organisation trying to achieve? But more interestingly for me, what were they trying to achieve? Yeah. Perhaps buying something helped to grow their profile, helped to put them on the next step to the next stage of their career. And that for me was a fascinating dynamic in the sales discussions. And I think when I left the FT, I moved into sales management role. And for me, that was a bit too dry, a bit too. We spent a lot of time doing budget spreadsheets where I was. Lot of time doing budgeting spreadsheets, and accounts and things like that are not my joy by any stretch. I have to do it running my own business, but it doesn't bring me joy. I have a wonderful team of people that help me with that. I do what I have to do, and then they tell me what I've missed when it comes to
I wonder though, you're so right. How many times have you seen it in your academic teachings of sales leaders, but also in your own experience, that organizations take key successful salespeople and they put them directly into management? And basically, what you're echoing here is what I hear all over the world is you can't always take the star salesperson and expect them to be an outstanding manager. You're cutting their passion.
No, absolutely.
You're actually taking them out of their true elements. And you just expressed that same exact reaction.
Absolutely, yeah. And the one thing I come across in my coaching when I'm working with leaders who find themselves in that position, perhaps they are grappling with internal processes and policies or the internal politics of organizations, but they've been people who've been really successful in externally facing roles.
Yeah.
And there's something really fascinating for me about how can leaders take what they know about doing externally facing things well and bring it into their leadership role so that they can influence in the organization, so that they can make change happen in a way that they've done amazingly with customers, with clients over the years. And they step inside and they lose that ability.
Exactly.
And I find that quite fascinating.
Well, they lose their way. They're out of their elements, aren't they? And then
Absolutely.
They're stuck in massive change at that moment, trying to adapt to something that's not native to their skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely. And so something I often challenge people to do is to think about what they know already that they can bring into a new role, into change, that they can use in a different way than they have before, but also that they can use to bring joy back into what they're doing. What was it you loved before, and how can you translate that into what you're doing now?
Oh my goodness. We're so early in our show, and there's the magic nugget right there. I don't think I've ever heard a leader say, "What is your joy? Can we bring joy into what you're doing every day?" Wow.
And yet,
that's incredible.
For me, and this is what drives me, I've been doing some work recently on my vision. And what drives me is helping people to make work a fulfilling place, a purposeful place. We spend so much time at work, and work environments can, for a whole raft of reasons, become toxic, become unhappy, become unhealthy. And my driver is to help individuals, groups, organizations to find fulfillment. And maybe there's something about joy in there as well, to bring joy back into the workplace.
Absolutely.
It's so important to me. And I've had times when I've worked in really joyless roles and thankless roles. But I've had other times when I've been so inspired and fulfilled and motivated. And it's trying to help people capture what it is that helps them feel that way and think about how they can bring it into their work lives.
Incredible. You may be a rarity. I don't think there's too many people like you. But if you're listening on the show, I hope that you can take these words of wisdom and start to try to weave them into your leadership ways. Tina, listening for me as well, too, I've had obviously a different perspective, viewing you almost like my professor, in the courses, etc. But it's so genuine and vulnerable for me to sit here and listening to your experiences as well. I didn't realize the deep in-depth experience you had in sales. And I can now understand why you were so passionate in the master's program about it does have to have a purpose. It has to align to your purpose, your mission, your vision, your joy. And I love that in the sales values that we learned in the master's program. It has to be about the customer, and it has to be about you as well too. And there's a greater purpose to what we're doing other than just selling a product or service.
Yeah, and I think there is also something when you think of sales is you have to believe in what you're selling,
Hmm.
because otherwise there's the joy, there's the authenticity,
Hmm.
which we both know is
Yeah.
such a key element of successful selling. Um, I've sold bricks, Grant.
Did you really?
I did indeed. It was an interesting phase of my
Well,
career.
you're in the right country for it. Everything is built out of
Everything is
bricks.
built in brick, and I tell you, I know more about bricks than I ever thought I would.
That's so
Um,
funny.
I spent 12 years in the city, did some fabulous roles, nearly always in this online environment. And by the end, people were starting to know the internet, starting to be familiar with what it could do.
Yeah.
And that was so exciting. And then I was asked if I would go and work in my family's business, which
Mm.
imported bricks. And I had always wanted to run my own business. And by the time I left the city, I was working for a very small specialist company, wonderful
Hmm.
place to work, but really reflecting my entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
And so this opportunity to work with my family's business, my dad said he wanted to retire, and I'd got management experience, I'd got experience in sales. Would I come on board and maybe one day take over? And I thought, this is a wonderful opportunity. And he said, you've got to go out and sell bricks to start with. You've got to understand what our market's like. And I have to say, it was easy. It was a really relaxed, after working in high pressure city environments for a long time, it was
Well,
very
and we
relaxed.
need bricks for our buildings.
And we need bricks, and there's a great market out there. And I no disservice at all to the building materials industry because it's
Hmm.
fascinating. It's got some amazing professional organizations, individuals in there. But for me, I didn't love bricks. My dad loves bricks, genuinely loves bricks. He's
Yeah.
fascinated by them. He can talk for hours. I don't love bricks. So I was
Hmm.
able to do the job. I enjoyed it. It had its time.
Yeah.
I learned a huge amount about running a business, about managing things like cash flow, for example, which, having then
Hmm.
set up my own business, incredibly important. And I learned about developing teams as
Yeah.
well, which I'd learned before, but it was nice to do that in a different environment. But I didn't love what I did.
That's so true.
And for me, how do we stay connected in some way or form? At the end of the day, it's work. It's
Yeah.
not you can't have every day where you skip in happy as anything. But if it's not bringing us joy, then
Yeah.
what other options are available to us?
It's so true. It's so true. And for so many people that are stuck in burnout situations and they can't find their way through change, then they stay there and just become miserable. And that's so sad.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
so sad. Well, you
Yeah.
talked a little bit about developing others, etc. So this was going to lead me into my next question. Can you describe just a little bit of what your leadership style is and what you believe to be important in your practice at 2J Consulting?
Mm. It's really interesting because essentially I'm a one-man band these days. I have associates who I work with,
Hmm.
but that's very much on a peer level
Yeah.
relationship, I would say. So it's interesting to me as I was thinking about that question, who am I as a leader these
Hmm.
days? I think I first became a leader in that sales management role, not by dint of being given a job description of sales manager, but because we had an amazing internal management development program. It was a
Mm.
week long, very intensive. We went away, residential, and I learned all about people development. I learned
Hmm.
about things like Myers-Briggs. I
Hmm.
learned about coaching.
Hmm.
That was what told me what coaching was. And it inspired me to become an effective leader,
Yeah.
to be probably the leader that I would describe myself still, in that I believe I've already mentioned this word, authenticity.
Yeah.
I always show up as myself. It's very
Hmm.
hard for me not to, if I'm completely honest.
Hmm.
My mother says I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I often talk about that in leadership programs.
I believe that. I've known you for quite some time. And that's one of your endearing qualities.
I am who I am, and I show up as me. And I'm very lucky that I get to do something where most of the time I can do that.
Yeah.
Um, I like to think that I'm professional. I once had a colleague when I was selling bricks phone me up and he said, Tina, I need to give you some feedback I've had from one of your clients. And I said, okay, thank you, I'd like to hear that. And he said, they think you're a bit too professional.
For brick sales.
And I was like, oh, so I was grappling with this. In what way am I too professional? And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to live with that one.
Yeah.
I can live with
That
it.
could be a badge of honor.
Yeah,
You're too professional.
Yeah,
I'd rather be that than you're too unethical.
Well, that's what I decided. Absolutely. The opposite wasn't really where I wanted to go. So
Exactly.
But I've come across a phrase recently, which I love, and actually it's in the strapline for my business. The strapline is excellence in coaching and leadership development. And the phrase that resonates with me is strive for excellence, not perfection. And I, as a leader, that's what I would always want my people to do. Let's do the best job we possibly can. We may not get everything spot on right. We may not be perfect. But as long as we learn from what we do and get better all the time, that's great. That for me is better than trying to be perfect in the moment, which I think is almost impossible.
It's so true. I love that. I had a brand leader at a company that I worked at, and he was so amazing. He said, "You know what?" He goes, "Fail. There you go. I said it. You can fail, and just fail often and fail fast." And he goes, "But get up quickly and keep going."
Yeah.
And I think that's along the same lines of what you're saying. There is no such thing as perfection. And if we can empower people and leave them with that ability to, it's okay to fall down, but how will you get up? Right.
And also, how can you make sure you don't make the same mistake again?
Yeah.
Because I think they say that's the definition of stupid, isn't it? Doing the same thing, making the same mistake over and over. I mean, we've all done it. We've all had our stupid moments, but
exactly. That's so true. I know I've been there before. Well, excellent.
Too.
Well, listen, also in what you do, you've gone from academia to real world practice. I think I learned in the doctorate, it's called pracademia, people who actually do real world work and academia at the same time. Your leadership style is very inclusive and very empowering. But how does personal change come into play with your coaching experiences?
I mean, I just think change is a given. Change happens all around us every day.
So
I was running I'm running a leadership development program for a large corporate at the moment, and one of the modules I'm running is called Lead Change, and it's about how to teach leaders how they can lead change. And one of the things that we talk about in that is the fact that actually change happens every day. If you send an email and ask somebody to do something, you're asking them to change. Change happens in small parts. It happens, it evolves, but then there's also change which is sudden, surprising, sometimes shocking, unexpected. We may choose to make that change happen, but it's still disconcerting for us. Or often change is thrust upon us and we have to deal with it. Now, what interests me and what really draws me to the Scared So What model is the fact that when change happens in organisations, particularly when it's done to people, there will be a project team somewhere planning that change. They will have, looked at the numbers of people that they need to get rid of, and they'll have thought about the process for getting rid of those people. And it's not a very nice phrase, but that's what happens in organisations. We've got to cut the numbers. This is the process that we're going to go through. This is the legal steps we need to follow. This is the support we're going to put in place for all these people. But what people forget is the individual impact on those people. But also on the people that are left behind. And what fascinates me, and I think what draws me to coaching, is that individual impact, because it's different for everybody. If you let's say you make, 5 people redundant, 2 of those people might be incredibly glad of it. They've been, my husband took voluntary redundancy a few years ago now. he'd been waiting for that. He'd been there for a very long time. There was no point leaving without a package. If we're honest about it, he'd been there for a long time. He knew they were restructuring on an ongoing basis. He'd held out for that. He was happy to go. One of his colleagues at the same time was hadn't been there very long, so he wouldn't get the same package.
Yeah.
He'd got a young family. He'd got, big financial commitments.
And it's a crisis for them.
And it was a crisis for them. So what can be good for somebody else and might be a case of, okay, this has happened. What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
For somebody else is an immediate and pressing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, what I think is often forgotten is the people who are left behind in an organisation.
And they're losing their peers, their friends, their colleagues.
Their friends, they're left going, well, there's only me left. How is all the work going to get done?
Exactly. They have to pick up all the work.
Yeah.
Which is often the case.
Every bit of organisational change, it can be planned. It can be project managed, and it absolutely should be. That's how organisations have to do it. They have a role to play. It's the harsh reality of business. These things have to happen, will happen, however much people don't want it to.
Yeah.
And they plan for it appropriately. But what has been forgotten is those individual responses to it. And for me, when I can support people through those change journeys, whether they're ones that they've chosen to go on or whether they're ones that have been forced upon them, I feel a great privilege to be able to support people as they go on those journeys. But Scared So what it does is it brings a model in that can help the masses, as it were, manage those individual changes. Because not everybody is going to have the time for coaching. Not everybody's going to have the money for coaching if they've got to fund it themselves.
Yeah,
they might not have the headspace for it. They might not want to talk to somebody. And Scared So What, because it's, you've got an app. You can work with people on it. You can bring it into the organisation and roll it out as part of that change, recognising that individual impact.
Yeah,
I think it's a great way to to manage the change that I see in my coaching.
Well, and thank you. That's just brilliant for me, obviously, and for Scared So What and what we're doing in our mission to try to make change inclusive, right? And it's a joy to hear you say that, because for 100 years of organizational change management, it has been prescriptive. And it's been the go-to for organizations, as rightfully as they should. I agree that the models, for the most part, are effective as they were intended and designed to be used. But you hit it right on the nail. We don't ask the questions to the employees, hey, how do you feel about this? Are you okay with this? Can you support this change? Or will you support this change? Because that's not the directional leadership styles or what we're confirming. We've been given an assignment. We've been told to do X. You will do as you're told, or you won't work here. I hate to put it bluntly, but that's the truth of the matter. Get on with it. That's what we are often told. Yep, 3 people are gone in your department, and get going.
And it is, there is an element to me. Let's be pragmatic about this. It's work. We're being paid to go in and do a job.
Yeah.
Often, if we get laid off, we're being paid to be laid off. This is what you do when you go to work.
Yeah.
But I think
sounds very cold, doesn't it?
It does. And we are there to do a job, which is, written on a piece of paper.
True.
But if we can support people, it's all about well-being, isn't it? And it's about what really matters. The core of it is actually, it's that joy, it's that fulfillment.
I was going to say, we have to find some positivity in here. And as you rightfully said earlier, how do we find the joy in the situation? But that also means care and empathy, and you chose to become a certified instructor in Scared So What. How have you merged that into your coaching practice?
So I do it in lots of different ways. I do it in, sometimes I might encourage somebody to download the app. To go away, it's something they're grappling with. It might not be the core conversation that we're having in an individual coaching session.
Yeah.
But it could be that I say, you might want to have a look at this app. It might be useful for you to think about what's going on. And then what they might do is come back to the coaching and say, having worked through the app, this is what I'm now thinking. How can the coaching help me to move on? So it can give people clarity of thought. So there's that way of doing it. I have used it in some of the leadership development training that I do.
Have you really? Wow.
Yeah. I did a workshop just after I became certified, actually. And I'm trying to think what the focus of the workshop was, but it was around change. It was with a team. It was just a half-day workshop. But that was it. They knew that change was coming. But at that moment, nobody knew what it looked like, including their director. The director said, we know that there's change afoot organisationally, and I want my team to be as resilient as possible as we go into this period of change. So we talked about all the standard change stuff. We talked about the Kubler-Ross change curve or whatever, whichever version of it I'd chosen to work with that day.
Exactly.
We talked about how that might feel. We talked about how they could work together as a team and how they could support each other. But then what we did was I took the scared so what questions and put them into a template.
Oh, nice.
And then I explained the model, and then I don't think we worked through all of them because we didn't have a huge amount of time, but we went through sort of what seemed at the time like the salient ones.
But that's coaching, right? Yeah, coaching, you don't always get through, the models.
Absolutely, yeah. But what they all said was, I think without fail, the feedback at the end was that was the thing that really helped me. And I think because it became personal to them, we weren't talking about them as a team. We weren't talking about how the team could move forwards. We were talking about them as individuals. And it gave them, I think what it did was it gave them permission to take control.
Absolutely. Well, and Tina, as you and I have talked about this, you were there the day Scared So What was born in that master's program.
Yeah.
There has to be something for the individual. And the question, and I think, I remember that day in class, I was working with you, with Dr. Louise, and Dr. Philip Squire. And my change resistance to the organizational change models was, where's the model for the individual?
Yes.
I haven't been taught how to manage personal change. And then I looked around at all of you as professors and to my fellow cohort members. Hey, guys, gals, have any of you been taught how to manage personal change for yourself? Not a single person could say yes.
Yeah.
And in my what now 9 year journey of speaking with thousands of people around the world, I've never found a human being that says, oh, yes, by the way, I've been taught how to manage personal change for myself. That was the opportunity.
Yeah.
If we could help people, right?
I can remember you saying, I think we had some time, like reflective time for you guys to think about what are we going to do with this?
Yeah.
And I can remember you turning to me and saying, Tina, this is not how I've experienced change. This is not how it's affected me.
Yeah.
This is how the organization looks at it.
Yeah.
This isn't what happens for me. And I said, so what can you do about it? And you said, I'm going to build my own model.
And we did. And you guys kept grinding me. So sounds like you're a little scared. And that's where it stuck. You're damn right I'm scared. And change at work can be scary. Change at home can be scary. And if we've never been taught how to manage that, then our only direction is into fear, worry, stress, and assumption. And that's what I wanted to try to help people get away from. Well, I'm so touched that you're actually incorporating this into your coaching practice because, you're so right. If we can coach people through their feelings to make an informed decision about how they feel about change, and then focus on coaching them towards what can you do about it? What's your so what? Now, all of a sudden, you're empowering people. And I would think every leader in every organization would want that.
I'm just thinking that as you're saying that, Grant, I went to a talk many years ago now by Miles Downey, published coaching author. And he started the talk saying, we're all here as trained coaches. We're all into empowerment. We're all into helping people to find ways forward. He said, but what we have to bear in mind is very often our clients are stuck.
Yeah.
They are stuck in a way that we as coaches don't even probably understand.
Yeah.
And I think so many people, when faced with change, go into, you've got fight or flight, but there's
Mm-hmm.
also fawn, and they go
Mm-hmm.
into fawn and they're just stuck like rabbits in headlights.
Yeah.
And what Scared So What does is it gives people a model, and I just love the acronym. They're scared. They're
Yeah.
those rabbits stuck in the headlight, and the scared part helps them understand why they're scared.
Yeah.
And then the so what gives them a way of getting out of it. And that is so incredibly powerful.
Ah, Tina, I could talk to you all day, but can you believe we're already out of time?
We
So,
really, goodness me.
yes, it's been a wonderful discussion with you. As I ask each of my guests on the show to wrap up, what is one thing of advice that you'd like to give out to people about change, coaching, leadership, or just life?
I think probably just following on from what I just said, if you ever feel stuck in whatever situation you are in, there is a way forward. There is a
Yeah.
way out.
Yeah.
And, look at Scared So What? It could help you get out of that stuckness.
Wow. Wise words from a lady who believes that we all should find our joy. Thank you so much, Tina. It's been an honor to have you on the show. And for all of our audience members, if you'd like to learn more about Tina or even connect with her wonderful company, 2J Consulting here in London area, you can follow along with her on LinkedIn as well, too. Tina, it's been a wonderful privilege to have you. I hope you'll come back.
I will do. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you, Grant.
It's wonderful. Take care. And for my listeners, have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for joining us here on the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. If you found any of this information insightful, well, give us a like and follow along. Make sure that you tune in each week for more episodes as we talk further about what is personal change, how do you manage it with Scared So what about coaching, and also leadership, and how all three of these tie together. If you'd like to learn more, then go to our website at www.scaredsowhat.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope that you come back soon.